What is up, guys? Welcome to Garage 23 and another bucket list item for our trip, Omori Factory. So right off the bat, we got a badass car. We got an Autech R33 GTR sedan. These weren't actually produced by Nissan, they're produced by Autech. So it was like kind of like a dealership option if you were to check every single box in the options list. Autech actually took a sedan and took an entire GTR drivetrain and swapped it into these cars, and even did basically a custom wide body on a 33 sedan, because all this wasn't original. This was all done by Autech. And this is basically the only sedan that you can get as a GTR. Really awesome car. Got the Omori factory sticker on it. And then further down the line, we got some absolute JDM nuggets. Like I said, Nissan has been focusing a lot on their little economy box kind of K cars, and these are good examples of that. Not really our cup of tea, but when you live in Japan and space is limited, you got to make do with what you got. And then down here we got some pretty awesome cars. They're either R30s or R31s. I can actually never really tell the difference. If you know how to tell them apart, tell us down in the comments. But these are really awesome nonetheless. And these have got to be these have got to be workers here, because they even coordinated the colors to be like Nismo colors, so that's pretty cool. Got some work wheels on this one, some BBSs on this one, and Volks on the last one. Super clean examples, really awesome cars. This one's even got endless brakes. This one looks like it has R32 GTR brakes. And this white one's also on endless brakes. Yeah, these are really well done. All right, so these cars are all pretty cool and everything. Everybody loves a good Skyline, but we have an absolute god among men here, the Nissan Cube. Majide. This is my absolute favorite car here, hands down. I love these. I want to get one of these. Hopefully one day we'll be able to afford one. But this is an absolute pristine example in its natural habitat, the urban parking lot. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all that's here in the parking lot today. So let's go check out inside and try not to spend our life savings. All right, so this is one of the places I've been most excited about, because I finally get to see my dream car in person. So this is like a super exciting moment for me. And no, it's actually not a GTR. It's not even a Skyline. Some of you might not even know what it is. But if you played Gran Turismo all the way back since the PS1 days, you might know. So let's go check it out. The Nissan R390 GT1. This is my absolute dream car, which is kind of sad because you can't buy this. There's only ever two made for private ownership. One of which is in the Nissan Heritage collection, and the other one is owned by a Nissan executive. So there's no chance of us ever owning something like this. But just being in the presence of it is just mind-blowing. An interesting fact about these is these headlights. If you own a Z32, you might recognize them, because these are from a 300ZX, which is super cool. But being that we'll probably never be able to afford one, might have to make our own. So we may or may not be doing that in later years of our channel if we happen to get that far. But yeah, super awesome example of Nissan Heritage. But let's check out what else they got here. All right, the next car they have on display here is the Reebok Nissan Skyline GTSR. She's sitting on SSR wheels and Dunlop tires. The British Reebok livery. I don't know a whole lot about this car, but super cool. I'm not really into R31s, as I'm sure most of you aren't either, but awesome example of Nissan Heritage as well. Now we have something that I know all of you are going to be interested in, is the Advan R34 GTR. This car competed in the Super TACU series here in Japan. Super awesome example of an R34, and it's got a front bumper that I really like in particular. I would really love to do something like this if, you know, if we ever manage to get a Skyline of our own. This front bumper is really reminiscent of the MCR front bumper that Matchless Crowd Racing makes for the 34. This one on Yokohama Advan tires. And of course, Endless being a title sponsor, has got Endless brakes on it. Super awesome. It's always interesting seeing these cars in person because like you've seen them in photos and videos and stuff over the years, and they just seem like they're so much bigger than they actually are. Seeing it in person, it's not a very big car. I mean, it's big compared to like, you know, something like a March or whatever, but like you expect these to be like much larger than they actually are. Because seeing it in person, it's still a pretty compact car. West GT wing. Still has the GTR stock shift knob. That's interesting. All right, and here we have some absolute beasts as well. We have the R35 Motul Alltech R35 GTRs. These are super impressive in person. I mean, I've seen pictures of these, you know, online, as I'm sure most of you guys have over the years, and like seeing it in person just doesn't compare. It doesn't do it justice. They're so wide and so low. Like this is the main look that I would want to replicate in a street car for something that we build, and this is what I tried to do with the 350Z that we have. But one of the main difficulties in doing something like this is the wheel arches. As you guys can see here, the headlights are a lot lower, almost to the point where I've always questioned if they cut the bottom of the car or something like that, because the wheel arch is brought so far up that it's actually higher than the hood, which definitely isn't something that you see on a street car. But a lot of the Super GT, those kind of cars, they're set up the same way. And I've always wanted to know like how they've been modified as far as the chassis goes. Because on a street car and on the 350Z, I looked into like how it would be possible to do something like this. Because on the 350Z, you have a giant frame rail that goes above the wheel arch, and that all has to be cut out basically. Like, so like on a car like this, I'm like, how is the front end held on? Because there's obviously no frame here. So that's something I've always wondered about these cars, is how they're put together. Because they're so much wider, and then just how low it is just, that's the key things to making this Super GT look, is, you know, super low, which is obviously something a lot of car guys do anyway, but this is low and it's practical because it, you know, it still can go fast. And you can see just how much wider it is than a factory GTR. You can see there's at least 5-6 inches from the door to the side skirt. It's insane. Just the amount of R&D that goes into these cars for aerodynamics is mind-blowing. Just the detail on the, this actually looks like hardware cloth that we would use to keep our chickens in the chicken coop. But just the details of like how it's like shaped to go in the specific opening, it's really awesome. And the giant chassis mount wing, like this isn't just some cheap spoiler that's bolted onto the trunk. Like this goes all the way straight into the frame of the car. It's really cool. And obviously very functional. And I believe this one on the left here, this was the first version. And I believe this was the later version. This one has a lot more intricate details on the aero. Super complicated side skirt. I mean, look at this side skirt. This is bananas. And it's actually even wider than the other one. This is like a whole hand away from the door. That's a crazy amount of width that they added to this. On this one, we can actually see a little bit in to the wheel arch, which actually doesn't help because that's got a whole complete carbon Kevlar fender liner in there. That's really cool too. I would love to replicate something like this on one of our cars. These fender vents that they've been doing lately, these look really cool. Maybe on the Altima. Yeah, this is definitely the later model because you can see on the other one it has the older style taillights with the individual LEDs, whereas this one has the more updated crystal style CFL type, or not CFL, I forgot what it's called, but like the continuous LED rings. Oh, and then they also moved to a swan neck style wing in the back here. This wing is huge. It's like a picnic bench. It's incredible, and also adjustable. That's pretty cool. I love how they added these like little pixel details on the sides here. That's really cool. As it feels straight from a video game. And you can even see inside the cockpit here. It's absolutely insane. See the amount of switches and dials and stuff. How do you keep track of all that when like racing? And the aerodynamics even go as far as to extend into how they place the windshield wiper. That's pretty cool. Here in the back, we have really cool examples of Nissan's racing engines. This one in particular is really interesting because this is the one they used in the GT3 class. And this one is basically a stock engine. One of the main changes that they made was just more robust turbos. And even that is something they added to later model Nismo GTRs. So you can basically get this exact same engine in a GTR that you can buy from the dealership. Right, the next engine we have here is super cool. This is one of my favorites personally. This is the VRH34A. This is actually the engine that came out of the first GTR that we looked at right here. And this is a V8 engine, a 3.4 liter displacement. It made almost 500 horsepower. And it was loosely based around the VH45 and VK56 engines, or probably VK45 probably. These are what they used in the GT500 races, the GT500 class. And this is super cool seeing these in person. This isn't an engine that you can just buy. Like I said, it's based on the VH45 and VK engines, but there's not a whole lot of that left, honestly. If you look at the side of the block, that kind of looks like the VK56 that we just dropped into our Titan. It's got the 6-bolt mains. You can see the bolts for the main caps on the side there. And the engine mount bracket looks kind of similar, but not really. It'd be super cool to be able to buy one of these engines somehow and drop into something like a custom-made chassis that we're going to do custom fiberglass work to make it look like a R390. That would be super cool. Now here, we have a really cool display of a bunch of little tiny GTRs. And they make the giant GTR emblem. All right, of course we saved the best for last. We have a Nissan Sanabi Sunny, which is basically the B14 Sentra that we got in the US. And this is powered by an SR20 DE, an NA, non-turbo. This one's making 300 horsepower. And this one in particular competed in the Japan Touring Car Championship. Super cool example of a front-wheel drive Nissan race car. I was always kind of sad that they never really used the U13 Bluebird chassis in anything. I think there's a couple of cars that were built for racing, but I don't think any of them were built by Nissan. This one was though, and this is super cool. It's about as close as you can get to an actual front-wheel drive Nissan race car. Got some Volk Racing Super mag wheels, with AP Racing calipers. Just awesome car in general. So an interesting detail is these vents that they have on the side mirrors. It's like air scoops or something. That's a really interesting detail. I wonder if that funnels air into the cabin for the driver or something. Can't quite see on the other side, but it's a really cool dash too. The dash actually looks really similar to the R32 GTR. Here we have all of Nissan's trophies on display. I'm not sure if this is all of them. I'm sure there's more, but yeah, they know what they're doing when it comes to making fast cars. GT500 class winners. A lot of them. The racing suits, only from back in the day. It's super cool. We got the old school Nismo logo on the arm there. We're a bit partial to that one. Another awesome display that they have here is this model of the GT500 car with all the aero and all the R&D that they did to this car. Oh, that's interesting. I think the wing is made of wood. That's pretty cool. And the whole chassis is actually, or the whole shell is carbon fiber. That's pretty fancy. Like I love this part, and I love how like they designed all this, but I want to know what's under all of this. It makes me want to ask them if they could like open the hood for us or something, but they probably won't. And I almost totally missed this display, but they have a bunch of little stuff that you can buy here. And I've come across what is very likely the most expensive Hot Wheel I have ever seen in my entire life. So I was looking at that red R34 GTR because that's my favorite color of R34. But if you look at the price, it's like $80. So I don't know if I like it that much. It feels like a slightly bigger size, I might go for it, but it's a Hot Wheel. It's crazy. All right, so as you guys probably know, Omori Factory is a full service Nissan facility, and they do everything from basic installs all the way up to ground up restorations. They have a few examples of stuff that they're working on here, like the amazing Z-Tune R34 GTR. And this, I believe this is their most recent creation. That's the Clubman Race Spec GTR. This one, there's like a huge wait for it, and it is an absurd price. Like, I think it's upwards of $200,000 for the service, not the car, mind you. You still have to get an R34 yourself, which is already over $100,000. And not only do you just have to get a GTR, it has to be a good enough GTR for them to consider making into the Clubman spec. So there's a lot of criteria that has to be met for them to do this. And I always thought it was kind of weird because this one isn't as good as the Z-Tune. Everybody's been making a big deal about the Clubman race spec, but it's not anywhere close to the Z-Tune. The Z-Tune has a lot more customized parts, it's just a lot more in-depth of a build. And the Clubman only has pieces of the Z-Tune on it. So this is kind of like like a GT2 RS, and this is like a GT3. I know that that's a rough comparison, but like this is like the more street version, and this is like the more, you know, hardcore version. But I just think it's funny that this one, well, then again, this one's obviously going for way more than $200,000 now. I mean, this one's what, like $1 million now? I'll put the price in here somewhere of what these are going for currently, but it's nothing any of us can afford. This is another Clubman race spec. You can tell because of the color. They usually all come in this dark gray, charcoal, gunmetal, graphite color. Here we have something a little more modest, you know, just the standard Bayside Blue 34 GTR, the poor man's spec here. Jesus. Okay, now here we have the really dangerous part of Omori Factory is their retail section. First of which is the engines. They actually have engines on sale that you can buy here, and they are not cheap. The Nismo S1 VR38, this one's about $18,000. And then next we have the Nismo S2 RB26. This one is $29,000. R32 GTR used to go for when they were first imported. Then we have the real expensive ones, the Nismo R3 and R4 engines. These ones can be up to $45,000. This is nuts. And over here we have some absolute legends. These two RB26s were what basically made the GTR so world-renowned. Yeah, this one's the wet sump version, this one's the dry sump version used in the GT500 Japan Grand Touring Car Championships. This is like absolute pieces of history here. This is really cool. I think it's funny that this RB26 is interesting in particular because it doesn't look anything like an RB26. These were never really meant to like be shown. They were just meant to get the job done. And these valve covers are really cool. And like, I would like to have valve covers like this. And there's only one company that makes them, and it's Ross Performance Parts out of Australia. And some people have asked why they make their valve covers like, because some people say they're kind of ugly because they have like a really interesting design, and it's because they're trying to copy these valve covers. They have like these really blocky square pieces on the Ross Performance Parts ones, and this is why, because they know that this is where the GTR started, what really made it such an awesome car and recognized around the world, and that's what they try to convey in their parts. And we have all their other parts that are available for purchase, which, yeah, they get pretty expensive. This carbon fiber charge pipe for the turbos is a really cool piece, but yeah, it's about $2,000 or so, probably more like $2,500. We have the polished aluminum version. That one's like $1,500. It's crazy. Z-Tune carbon radiator panel, also like $300. Rear tow hook, $300. Parking brake, shift lever, boots, $150. And that seems reasonable. It even says Omori factory on the shift boot. That's a nice touch. At least people will know that it's legit. Then we have the titanium strut tower bar. I know Larry Chen just picked up one of these for his 32 GTR. And it was funny seeing him get that through the airport and customs and stuff like that. I don't think I want to go through that trouble. Not that we could afford a $1,500 strut tower bar, but. And again, this is like a dealership also. They have plenty of like maintenance and replacement parts here available as well. So if you need literally anything for your Skyline, they probably got you covered. And Z cars, they have a few Fairlady Zs in there and stuff too, so. Carbon fibers. Cars on fire. Carbon fiber rear mirror covers. Ooh, then B-pillar garnishes. These are super cool. Oh, and then the Xenon R34 headlights. These are not cheap anymore. 273,000 yen. That's like $2,000 or so. And here we got a better view of all the cars that they're working on in here. This blue one, actually, I was saying was just a regular GTR. I think it might be a NER spec. I can't quite see on the other side, but it's at least got the S1 and S2 package on it, so it's the most entry level here, but it's still not a cheap GTR by any means. And then on this side, we have a brand new Fairlady Z. All right, I think that's gonna do it for our visit to Omori factory. We're gonna do a little bit of shopping, try not to go bankrupt here. But thanks for watching our video. I'll see you guys on the next one.